Welcome to the world of science fiction and forgotten worlds. Alien Universe. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and never miss a new movies and story from this channel. No one in the Star Empire expected the princess to survive. On the day she was born, the palace filled with silence instead of celebration. Royal scientists surrounded the newborn, scanning her tiny body with glowing devices. Minutes passed. Then one of them slowly lowered his head. "She has no active star core," he whispered. In the Star Empire, every royal child was born with a glowing energy inside their blood, a power that allowed them to control cosmic forces. It was the source of the Empire's strength. Without it, a royal heir was nothing. Less than nothing. The Emperor stared at the child lying in the golden cradle. She looked peaceful, her small fingers gently curled, unaware of the cold judgment around her. "Is there any mistake?" the Emperor asked, his voice low and dangerous. The scientists shook their heads. "The tests are clear, Your Majesty. Her blood carries no power." The room felt colder. A powerless princess was a shame the Empire could not allow. For days, the child was kept hidden in a quiet chamber deep inside the palace. No celebrations, no announcements, no name given to her. Servants whispered about the Emperor's defective daughter, and the word spread like poison through the royal halls. On the seventh night, the Emperor made his decision. Under the dark sky of a distant desert planet, a small royal ship landed quietly on the burning sands. The wind howled across the endless dunes as two guards stepped out, carrying a small bundle wrapped in silver cloth. Inside the bundle, the baby princess slept peacefully. One guard hesitated. "Your Majesty, she is still your daughter." The Emperor's eyes were colder than the stars above. "She is not my daughter. She is a mistake." Without another word, he turned away. The guards placed the child on the sand beside a broken metal beacon, the only thing standing in that empty wasteland. Then the ship lifted into the sky and disappeared into the darkness. The princess was alone. The desert planet was known for its deadly heat during the day and freezing storms at night. No one survived there for long. The Empire believed the problem had been solved. But something unexpected happened. Hours later, as the cold wind swept across the dunes, the baby began to cry. And when her tiny heart beat faster, something strange flickered under her skin. A faint glow, soft, weak, but real. Far away, flying through the darkness of space, a lone smuggler guided his old cargo ship toward the desert planet. His scanners suddenly blinked with a strange signal. "That's odd," he muttered, leaning closer to the screen. "What kind of energy reading is that?" The signal was weak, but unlike anything he had ever seen. Curious, the smuggler changed course. He had no idea that the small signal coming from that desert planet belonged to a child the Star Empire had thrown away. And he definitely did not know that the defective princess they abandoned was carrying a power that could one day shake the entire galaxy. The smuggler's ship descended slowly through the dusty clouds of the desert planet. The wind outside howled like an angry beast, shaking the old cargo vessel as it approached the surface. Inside the cockpit, the smuggler frowned at the glowing signal on his scanner. "That energy reading, it's still there," he muttered. He had traveled across hundreds of planets, smuggling rare metals, strange creatures, and sometimes things he didn't even ask about. But this signal was different. It was small, unstable, yet incredibly unusual. Curiosity pulled him closer. The ship landed roughly on the sand, its engines coughing as they shut down. Outside, the freezing night wind pushed waves of dust across the endless dunes. The smuggler wrapped a scarf around his face and stepped down the metal ramp. "This place better be worth the trouble," he grumbled. He followed the signal on a small handheld scanner. The beeping grew faster as he walked across the sand. A few meters ahead, something caught his eye. A faint blinking light from an old metal beacon. Strange, he whispered Dot as he moved closer. He noticed something lying beside the broken beacon. A small silver bundle, half covered by sand. For a moment, he thought it was abandoned cargo. Dot. Then the bundle moved. The smuggler froze. Slowly, he knelt down and pulled away the cloth. Dot inside was a baby. Her tiny face was pale from the cold, and her eyes were closed as she cried softly into the empty desert night. What in the stars? He whispered in shock. Who would leave a child here? He quickly lifted the baby into his arms. She was freezing, but still alive. As he held her closer, his scanner suddenly started screaming with loud alarms. Beep, 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 beep. The smuggler looked down at the device in confusion. The energy signal was coming from the baby. That's impossible, he murmured. He stared at the child carefully. At first, she looked like any other baby. But then he noticed something strange. Dot under her skin. Faint glowing lines flickered for a second, like tiny rivers of light moving through her veins. The glow vanished almost. Instantly, Dot, the smuggler's eyes widened. I've seen a lot of strange things, he said quietly, but never this. He looked around the empty desert again. Whoever left this child clearly wanted her gone. No ship signal. No supplies. Nothing. Just a baby. Abandoned in a place where no one could survive. The wind grew stronger, pushing sand against his boots. Smuggler sighed. Well, kid, he muttered, wrapping the silver cloth tighter around her. Looks like you just became my problem. He carried her back to the ship and rushed inside. Warm air filled the cabin. As the doors sealed shut. Dot, the baby slowly stopped crying. For a moment, she looked up at the smuggler with wide, curious eyes. And then it happened again. A faint pulse of glowing energy moved through her tiny body. Brighter than before. The ship's instruments flickered. Dot lights blinked. Dot, the smuggler stared at the control panel in disbelief. What kind of child are you? He whispered. Dot, far across the galaxy, inside the shining capital of the Star Empire. Royal scientists suddenly noticed something alarming. That one of their ancient energy monitors had just activated. A signal they believed had disappeared forever was alive again. Inside the smuggler's ship, the small cabin was finally quiet. The engines hummed softly as the ship lifted away from the desert planet and disappeared into space. The smuggler sat in the pilot's chair, still staring at the strange readings flashing across his control panel. Every few seconds, the scanners reacted again. Energy spikes, small but powerful, and every single one of them was coming from the baby sleeping in a small cargo blanket beside him. This makes no sense, he muttered. He leaned closer to the monitor, adjusting the scanner settings again and again. At first, he thought the machine was broken, but the results were always the same. The child was producing energy. Not normal energy, something far stranger. He looked over at the baby. She was sleeping peacefully now, completely unaware that the ship's systems were still reacting to her presence. For a moment, everything seemed calm. Then suddenly, the lights inside the ship flickered. The control screen flashed bright blue. A wave of energy moved through the cabin like a silent pulse. The smuggler jumped up. Hey, what was that? His instruments beeped wildly again. Another energy surge, this time stronger. The baby stirred slightly in her sleep. Her tiny fingers moved, curling gently in the blanket. And once again, the faint glow appeared under her skin. Thin lines of light traveled across her arms, then faded. The smuggler watched in stunned silence. Kid, he whispered slowly, whatever you are, you're definitely not normal. He rubbed his beard. nervously. If the Empire discovered this child, they would never stop searching for her. Smugglers survived by staying invisible. But a baby that produced strange cosmic energy? That was the opposite of invisible. Still, he couldn't just leave her somewhere. He sighed heavily and leaned back in his chair. "Well," he said, glancing at the sleeping child, "looks like you're traveling with me for now." Hours passed as the ship moved deeper into the outer regions of the galaxy. But far away, in the shining capital world of the Star Empire, something disturbing had just happened. Inside the Imperial Science Tower, dozens of glowing monitors suddenly lit up. Alarms echoed through the massive hall. Scientists rushed toward the ancient star energy detector, a machine that had been silent for years. One of them stared at the screen, his face turning pale. That signal can't be real." Another scientist checked the readings again. "It's the same energy signature," she whispered nervously. The room fell silent. Because everyone there recognized that signal. It belonged to the royal bloodline. But that was impossible. The only royal child with that exact energy pattern had been declared defective and abandoned years ago. The head scientist swallowed hard. "Send a report to the Emperor immediately." Moments later, inside the dark throne room of the Star Empire, the Emperor listened quietly as the message was delivered. When the report ended, the room remained silent. Slowly, the Emperor stood. His cold eyes stared out at the stars beyond the palace window. "So," he said quietly, his voice heavy with anger, "the mistake is still alive." His hand tightened slowly. "Find her." The smuggler's ship drifted quietly through the dark edges of the galaxy. Days had passed since he found the mysterious baby in the desert. During that time, the strange energy pulses from her body continued to appear, sometimes weak, sometimes strong enough to disturb the ship's systems. At first, the smuggler thought it was random, but slowly he noticed something strange. The energy only appeared when the child was emotional. When she cried, the lights flickered. When she laughed softly in her sleep, the scanners reacted again. And one evening, something even stranger happened. The smuggler was repairing a broken engine cable in the cargo room when he heard a loud metallic crash. Clang! He quickly ran into the cockpit. What now? He groaned, then he stopped. A heavy metal toolbox had somehow slid across the floor, all the way to the opposite wall. But the ship was perfectly stable. There was no turbulence, no movement. Only the baby sitting in the seat beside the control panel, waving her tiny hands in the air. The smuggler slowly looked at the toolbox, then at the baby. "Did you just do that?" The baby giggled. At that exact moment, another pulse of glowing light flashed under her skin. The smuggler's eyes widened. That wasn't energy. He whispered in disbelief. That was control. He quickly pulled up the scanner readings again. The numbers were rising higher than ever before. But something about the pattern was wrong. Very wrong. The smuggler opened an old galactic archive on his computer, searching through ancient records about star energy. He scrolled through thousands of files. Then suddenly, he froze. One record caught his attention. It was an ancient imperial document about something called the sleeping blood. According to the record, long before the Star Empire ruled the galaxy, there existed a rare genetic power hidden deep within the royal bloodline. Most royal children were born with a star core, allowing them to control cosmic energy. But once, every few centuries, a different power appeared. A power far stronger. A power so dangerous that the Empire had erased all records of it. The smuggler read the final line slowly. Those born with sleeping blood show no power at birth. There. Abilities awaken later, growing stronger with emotion and time. His heart started beating faster. Wait, no star core at birth. He slowly turned toward the baby. But power that awakens later. The smuggler's face went pale. They didn't abandon a defective princess, he whispered. They abandoned something far more powerful. At that exact moment, the baby looked at him quietly. Her small eyes suddenly began glowing faintly. Then, for just 1 second, every metal object in the cockpit lifted slightly off the ground. The toolbox, the control panels, even the smuggler's chair. Everything hovered silently in the air. The smuggler's mouth fell open. Stars above, he breathed. The objects gently dropped back to the floor. The baby blinked, then yawned, as if nothing had happened. But the smuggler now understood the terrifying truth. The Empire believed they had thrown away a weak child. Instead, they had abandoned the most powerful royal bloodline the galaxy had ever seen. And somewhere deep in Imperial space, the Emperor's search fleet had already begun moving. Thousands of warships, all looking for one small child. The smuggler sat frozen in the pilot's chair, staring at the little girl. Just moments ago, every object in the cockpit had floated into the air as if gravity itself had stopped listening to the rules of the universe. Now, everything was calm again. The baby yawned softly, rubbing her tiny eyes like nothing unusual had happened. But the smuggler knew the truth now. This isn't normal star energy, he whispered to himself. He looked back at the ancient record glowing on the screen. Sleeping blood, a power so rare that the Star Empire had erased it from history. A power that did not appear at birth, but slowly awakened as the child grew stronger. Which meant the Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had thrown away their most powerful heir. The smuggler rubbed his face slowly. Kid, do you realize what you are? The baby simply looked at him and smiled. At that moment, a loud alarm suddenly exploded through the ship. Beep, 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 beep. Red warning lights flashed across the cockpit. The smuggler spun toward the radar screen. What now? His heart nearly stopped. Dozens of signals appeared on the scanner. Large ones, warships, Imperial warships. They found us, he muttered. Far in the distance, massive black ships began appearing out of hyperspace. Their long metal bodies glowed under the distant starlight, surrounding the small cargo vessel like hunters closing in on their prey. A deep voice suddenly echoed through the ship's communication system. Unidentified vessel, this is the Imperial fleet. Shut down your engines immediately. The smuggler gripped the control panel tightly. Well, that didn't take long. He looked down at the small girl beside him. They're here for you. The baby blinked curiously, completely unaware of the danger surrounding them. Outside, the Imperial fleet moved closer. Huge cannons rotated slowly toward the smuggler's ship. The voice returned, colder this time. Last warning. Power down your ship. The smuggler sighed. Yeah, that's not happening. He slammed the engine controls forward. The cargo ship shot forward through space, weaving between asteroids as the Imperial fleet opened fire. Bright laser blasts exploded behind them. Come on, come on, he shouted, fighting the controls. But the Empire's ships were faster. Within seconds, 3 massive warships blocked his path. The smuggler's ship slowed. There was nowhere left to run. Silence filled the cockpit. The smuggler leaned back in his chair, breathing heavily. Well, kid, he said quietly, this might be the end of the road. At that moment, the baby suddenly began to glow. Soft lines of light appeared across her arms again. But this time the glow was stronger, much stronger. The smuggler noticed it immediately. Wait, what are you doing? The baby lifted her small hand toward the front window. Outside the ship, the Imperial fleet prepared to fire. And then, it happened. A massive wave of invisible force exploded outward from the tiny child. The entire cargo ship trembled. Outside in space, the Imperial warships suddenly froze. Engines shut down. Weapons powered off. Every massive vessel stopped moving as if the universe itself had pressed pause. Inside the cockpit, the smuggler stared out the window in complete disbelief. The entire fleet was motionless. Stars. That was you? The baby giggled happily. The glowing energy slowly faded from her skin. Far away, inside the command bridge of the largest Imperial warship, terrified officers stared at their dead control panels. Nothing worked. No engines, no weapons, no systems. The Emperor's fleet had been completely disabled by a child. Back inside the cargo ship, the smuggler slowly shook his head. Well, he muttered with a small laugh, looks like the Empire really messed up. He gently adjusted the ship's course. The engines started again. The small cargo vessel quietly flew past the frozen Imperial fleet and disappeared into the endless stars. No one followed. No one could. And somewhere in the quiet darkness of space, the rejected princess rested peacefully, her mysterious power still growing, waiting for the day the galaxy would finally learn the truth. The Empire believed they had thrown away a defective child, but one day very soon, they would realize they had abandoned the most powerful ruler the galaxy would ever see.